Hello and welcome to The Public Good. This is Deja James with Partnership for the Public Good, Director of Policy Advancement and Media, and we are so happy to come to you weekly every Tuesday morning at 11:30 a.m. on either WOFO 96.5 or on YouTube, Spotify Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And we're here to talk about today with the Clean Air Coalition. We're really excited to have you on. Crypto mining and AI. And really, I think those are like huge buzzwords right now on social media and like just across the world and the globe, since the internet is very global now. But I'm really excited to talk about it. I feel a little bit nerdy for being excited to talk about it. But because it's just something that everyone's talking about now and trying to figure out, like, should I do this thing? Should I use ChatGPT for this? Should I use, should I invest in crypto? Am I not doing the right investments? And I think, especially for marginalized communities, especially crypto, it's being pushed as an opportunity to create generational wealth, to talk about, systemic poverty and different things like that. There's like rappers like Jay-Z and different people who are like, we're going to make a crypto bank in our hood or whatever. And I'm like, is that revolutionary really? And things like that. And I think I only just started to see pushback with both AI and crypto, maybe crypto a little bit earlier on because people are like, this is fake money. But AI also, when people started talking about the environmental impact, which I just never would have connected. And there's certain reasons for that, obviously. I think a lot of us don't know how the internet works or where information is stored and how that is. And once I finally did learn about those things, I'm like, whoa, this is not like the internet isn't just a cloud like everyone's trying to make us think that it is. It lives somewhere, and where does it live and how does that impact our environment? So anyway, I had that long spiel, so I'll just let Bridge introduce themselves so I don't keep rambling on and on and on. But Bridge, please, if you want to introduce yourself in the Clean Air Coalition.
Yeah, so my name is Bridge Rauch. I'm one of the organizers at the Clean Air Coalition of Western New York. I use they, them pronouns. And I specifically work with the folks in the Tonawandas. So that's City of Tonawanda, North Tonawanda, Tonawanda, Village of Kenmore, and Grand Island. Our membership area also includes the City of Buffalo. And we do consulting on environmental justice campaigns and public health campaigns with folks in Erie County and Niagara County. Our basic mission statement is we help organize, we help develop grassroots leaders to run and win environmental justice and public health campaigns. In practice, that looks mostly like working with fence line communities. So that's folks who live either next to a current industrial facility or where there was an industrial facility and they just left all the contamination behind. And we do coalition-based organizing. So that's organizing with the workers on the site, as well as the residents who live nearby, and also just any stakeholder organizations that are aligned with us. And we use a few different frameworks in our organizing. The key one that I want to really highlight today is we use the just transition framework. So there's a few different ways of defining that if you Google just transition. But the basic concept is we have a extractive economy. That's the one that's based in a lot of petrochemical use. And burning and dumping. And that has just disparate impacts on environmental justice communities in particular. That we're in the areas where the stuff gets burned, we're in the places where the stuff gets dumped, right? Yep. And we want to get to a new economy, right? The build the good side. So and that's economy that's built in regenerative principles. Renewable energy is a big key part of this. Yep. Getting away from that old model of just burning and extracting, and moving to kind of I'm a big Star Trek fan, so the whole post scarcity economy, that they envision in Star Trek, kind of thinking in that that type of scale, but so that's just the basics, just about us. So
yeah, and I think it's so interesting. One, obviously, just naturally being a Rust Belt city, it makes total sense, for something like Clean Air Coalition to kind of have had its impetus in an area like this. And I think the other thing, growing up here myself, which was really this weird contradiction, was we had one of the world's biggest natural resources, and we're known for our parks and the lake lakes, the Great Lakes, and these beautiful, huge natural resources that don't exist other places. Because I know when I tried to describe a lake to somebody from like Georgia per se, they were like, "You mean the ocean?" And I'm
Right.
like, "No, like the Great Lake, like our lake, you can't just see the other side. It's that big." And so people don't really understand that. But at the same time, like on our shorelines, you see the big chimneys and you see the smoke and you see the thing. And then you have the fences around properties and it has like the X signs on it. As a kid, you're like, well, why can't I go in there? You don't know. You know what I mean? And I mean, some of us actually just jumped the fence and would go in there, you know? So to have both of those things concurrently at the same time, you know, it was like, I knew a lot about hydroelectric power. We took a field trip to Niagara Falls so we could go to the power plant and we saw all these things. But at the same time, we're like this beacon of pollution and industry and, you know, extractive capitalism, like you're saying. So being able to see those two things concurrently, I think is really interesting as being somebody from here. And so I love that your group, you know, organizes around that and works with the workers that, because some of these industries are still very active, very much providing employment for people here. And so I think some people feel like, well, I can't be environmentally conscious because that just like wouldn't go along with my livelihood, you know, and being able to like activate those people too and saying, no, you have power and agency to also be making a just and renewable economy.
Yeah. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that like the just transition model comes from union organizing, you know, that it was, you know, union organizers, you know, like about like 20, 30 years ago, who are looking at like, oh, hey, our health is being affected, you know, by these petrochemicals. You know, like we see, you know, like this new economy that's coming that we want to get to. But we don't want to leave behind, you know, like some of the positives, you know, like, union workforces, you know, like that we want organized workforces to be retained as we like move into like this like more regenerative economy, you know, and it's a key principle of just transition, you know, is support for workers and like, you know, that we're uplifting workers. So.
Absolutely. And it's totally not about replacing those workers. It may be changing the type of work that they're doing, but it's all, you know what I mean? It's including them in that process. And sometimes I think people feel like it has to be kind of oppositional. And I don't think that transition has to be that at all.
Yeah. That's where we get dangerous, is where we start to like actually like organize together collectively, like, you know, towards like, you know, like these shared goals, you know, like that's where we have like the real ability to build power, you know.
No, that's so powerful. I love that. Can you talk about an example or two maybe in the past of some organizing that you've done locally? I mean, for people that may or may not know, like I know you've done Tonawanda Coke, like different things like that.
But. Right. Yeah. So I've been on staff since like fall of 2021. So, you know, like, but Clean Air is like, you know, our roots go back to like the early 2000s. It was, you know, mostly like housewives, you know, in the city, like the town Tonawanda, who were looking around. They're just like, why is everybody sick? You know, like why does everybody have like, you know, all these weird cancers? You know, like we've never had cancer in our family. You know, like there's a lot of like respiratory conditions. What is going on? You know, and they were the ones that led the organizing effort to push the DEC to, you know, like figure out that, oh, you know what, there is a like criminal amount of benzene being emitted from Tonawanda Coke. You know that. And that's like at the root of like, you know, a lot of the health issues that people are dealing with. So it's always been fundamentally our organization, like, you know, that's how we do our organizing, is like it's residents who are leading on these things, you know, and it's residents who are coming to us with like concerns about their health or about environmental justice in their community. You know, like we are here to like facilitate and help them like get connected, you know, to you know, like, you know, different organizing models, you know, figure out how to do a strategy and build a campaign. But it's the residents who are the leaders, you know, who are doing the work, you know.
I love that. Union-led, resident-led, community-led, all of those things. Like you mentioned, like it's a group of housewives that made the DEC, like just even that sentence itself, like people thinking it's these marginalized groups who may or may not have agency to other people, like had the power once they came together to make a government agency do a thing. You know what I mean? And I think that's the most powerful part of all these interviews I get to do. Last week we had Eastside Parkways Coalition, who was talking about the pollution from Humboldt Parkway and the 33 and all these other things. And it's always just so aspirational and inspirational to me to see like community members who may or may not, you know, have a college education or other things that people feel like is a requirement of interfacing in government systems or things like that, doing the work that they know. And the other thing is like applying their lived experience. It's
Yeah.
like they can see that our communities are sick. They can
Yeah.
see the challenges. They can see those things. And just actually listening to people
Yes.
about those things.
But there's a bit of a culture in Western New York of like a systemic gaslighting where like people are being told like it's like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, you know, even though it's like, you know, it's obvious, like it's right in front of you. It's like you can smell it in the air, you can like see it in the air, like you can see like, you know, spills on the ground, you know, things like that happening all around you. But you know, you're like, you know, so a lot of our work is like it's empowering people to recognize that no, you know what you're talking about, you know, like you might not know all like the sciences behind it, but
Right.
you know, you can tell something is wrong and you are right, you know, like you are correct that you know something is wrong that needs to be addressed. We also like really focus on like democratic principles, you know, that like participate budgeting, you know, is a big piece of like our work, and like getting people like informed about how does government work, you know, and like what are those levers of power that you have the ability to put pressure on. So.
Yeah, creating accessibility points, because
Yeah.
the other thing is they make these systems a little bit more complicated than they have to be purposefully a little bit. So you get kind of frustrated and tired out. But speaking of like community speaking out, you know, people ringing the alarm and everything, I want to get to the topic that we were going to talk about today. And talk about crypto, because like I feel I really only have just now seen people are like, hey, there's this impact that happens, and then, you know, I don't remember all of the crypto bro CEOs names, but now they're like, yeah, well, we'll just propose and lobby for nuclear power and it's all gonna be fine.
My God. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's the big thing now, because now there is a little buzz on it. So now they're like, oh, we're just gonna like make a nuclear power plant, we're gonna open some of the old ones back up, and it's all gonna be fine, like totally solved. I think Jeff Bezos, Amazon, all these things are like, we're gonna like reduce our carbon footprint, we're actually gonna go into negative, you know, all this other stuff. So are these promises realistic? And what should we be concerned about with the current state of how we're going about crypto and AI and different things like that? Yeah.
So I think the first thing to start with is actually the question, like, what is a data center?
Yeah.
Right. So a data center, it's basically just like a bunch of computers, you know, that are all plugged in, you know, like, you know, either to grid power, you know, like the power that we all use, or they're plugged directly into a power station. And you know, sometimes these data centers they're literally just in shipping containers, like these banks and banks and banks of computers. And it's kind of funny, like there's actually a little bit of a rivalry between gamers, the gaming community, and like the crypto bro community, because like they're using a lot of the same equipment, you know, and it creates like this. You saw this especially during COVID, you know, like when there was a lot of like shortages. That was you know, like gamers were having shortages of like the equipment that they use, you know, because like crypto companies were buying up all the same computers. So when we talk about cryptocurrency, like you know, it's, you know, like I don't want to get like into like the details here. Like ultimately, like in my read of it is like the product is wealth extraction, you know, like it is a like there's something like, you know, 10% of cryptocurrency you know, like owners own like 90% of cryptocurrency that exists, you know. So it's, and yeah, like we can get into like, you know, some like some of the background there, but it's I see it as a false solution for economic like inequalities and like the need for like, you know, addressing like reparations, things like that in this country, as around the world. It's within that just transition framework. It falls on that extractive side. You know, it's like it's a way of like pulling money from like low income folks to enrich the 1%. You know, is ultimately what's at play. Cryptocurrency mining, you know, is like what we want to get to as far as the environmental side of things. There's a couple of different methods, right? The one that creates the biggest issues is what's called proof of work. You know, so that is all those computers are running all the time to generate like the numbers that, you know, create like that Bitcoin or, you know, that other form of cryptocurrency. And it's a winner takes all like process. So you have like, you know, hundreds, thousands of these computers all like running all at once. And there's one that, you know, figures out the right, you know, the right code, that blockchain code. And, you know, then that's the one that, you know, unlocks that Bitcoin, gets that Bitcoin. All that energy that all those other computers were running is wasted. You know, it's just like, it was just like burning, you know, like, you know, burning natural gas, burning coal, you know, to, you know, produce, you know, nothing. There's another version that's called proof of stake, which is what Ethereum uses. And what that is basically these computers all take turns. Then like you end up with like one. You have ultimately like everybody gets like a little piece of it. But it's like it's your turn for your computers to be running to like get that Bitcoin, and then after you or that Ethereum coin, and then after you get your coin, like it's goes to like the next person in that chain there. The grist.org has a really great like YouTube video about this. If folks want to look that up, it's a really good summary of this. But the whole like data center operation, like related to cryptocurrency mining, that's all that proof of work style. It's an older style. It's very inefficient. And it's very wasteful. It causes a lot of harm. So, yeah.
So, and, forgive me if I'm misunderstanding. So crypto mining itself, is that a part of the regular process of like crypto trading? Is crypto mining crypto trading, or is it like other activity? Like, what does that actually do? What function does that play in the system of crypto?
My understanding is, it's less about like the actual generation of the Bitcoin is separate from like the trading of the Bitcoin.
I see.
Okay. Like that's where you start to get into like Wall Street type folks, like
Right.
it's more of like the stocks type trading.
Right.
And I'll be honest, like that's a side of the issue that I know less about. Like I do think that there's like some concerning things we should all be keeping track of. Like there's talk of like right now of rolling back the FDIC, like the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And my read of that personally is that there's been this push for the banking industry to invest in cryptocurrency, which it's a very high risk operation, which would increase their insurance costs. So like that's my read. Is that like that like the FDIC, they don't want the FDIC involved because like cryptocurrency like trading is and like reliance on cryptocurrency is very high risk and would be very costly for the banking industry if they were to go that way.
Yeah, and I think I've seen a couple of different documentaries, and we've seen different crashes of different crypto companies and different things like that.
Because how many economic depressions have you been through so far in your life?
It's like it's crazy seeing the ups and downs of that industry. And it looks like gambling to me, to be completely frank with you. But like, I do think the reason, and what you said too, of like how only a certain percent own like 90% of the actual wealth of Bitcoin. And I think part of that is too because like investment and new investment has always been a game of like you have to pay to play, and the more money you can invest, the more disposable income you have, the more you win. I mean, it's like it's a part of that. And so to me, that whole pitch to lower income communities that, if you just, you do crypto, you do investment, I think there is something to be said about teaching investment to lower income communities and different things like that. But until we like address wealth disparity or different things like that, or poverty wages or all of those other things, like people can invest, they can, afford to go to the grocery store, and you're asking them to risk the little bit of 20 to 40 to hope, 100, God forbid, $100 that they have to buy crypto or a Bitcoin or whatever. It's just kind of unrealistic,
Absolutely.
And so I think for upper middle class people, that's a game maybe that they can play a little bit more, but to pitch it as this solve, like you said, of like reparations or income inequality or all of those other things, I think is really disingenuous. And then on top of that, now we're learning like there's these environmental impacts that nobody knew about. And at the end of the day, I saw another article, or I listen to podcasts. I actually don't read much, but I listened to a podcast from NPR that was talking about crypto and specifically, and how because it's not even like, they've been trying to get countries to make it their national currency, or like make it tradable, or make it all these different things, but because it's not, and not a huge part of the population owns it, the capacity of the data centers that already exist like is nowhere near what it would need to be if the envisioning of the expansion of this actually was enacted. And so I think that's where it comes in, where people are finally learning about the impacts of these data centers, and now as crypto companies are asking for these expansions on crypto, they're trying to concurrently say, oh, well, yeah, if we just make nuclear power plants, then you don't have to worry about the
Right.
expansion and everything will be fine and all of these different things. But we're still not addressing like the income inequality of that,
Yeah.
who can actually trade crypto, who actually has accessibility to those things.
Yeah.
And what are we really using it for? Because I think, you know, the other thing is, it's like, yeah, some everyday people use it and there's some rich people that use it, but a lot of it's used for like money laundering and like crime and other things like that, which nobody's talking about. So it's like, it's bad for the environment, where it's just like, it's, you know, it's fostering crime and different things. Like, why, what are the real benefits here? It's not actually happening, you know, helping with poverty or different things like that. So it's kind of like, what means to what end are we really talking about here? So yeah, I think all that stuff is really interesting. Sorry, I'm like going on and on, but what was the next topic that you wanted to discuss on?
So I guess like getting into like the environmental justice side of things.
Okay. And there's policies that could be implemented to kind of help with some of this.
So we started getting involved with this issue, like data centers and cryptocurrency mining in particular, just a few months before I came on staff. There's 2 operations in New York State. One of them is in Seneca Lake called Greenwich, and the other one that we work specifically on is Fortistar in North Tonawanda. These are both power plants that, you know, like, so I guess like step back a minute. We're in a massive like energy transition, right? You know, we are moved, like coal is like one of our campaigns that I still work on is the Huntley facility in the town of Tonawanda, right? This was a large coal-powered power plant, and we helped develop a plan to, you know, as that facility was closing, to help the town of Tonawanda and the residents like transition away from this coal-based power plant. But you know, it wasn't outside pressure, you know, like that, you know, from us at least, that caused Huntley to close. It was because coal is no longer able to keep up with the increasingly cheap costs of renewable energy. The solar industry in particular is massively cheap, and it's getting built out like, you know, like everywhere, you know, and for good reasons, you know, all around. So we're in this massive you know, energy shift, which means that all these older you know, power plants that are like run off fossil fuels are, you know, kind of in like a limbo status, right? You know, some of them are getting closed down and we're trying to get them cleaned up and such, but some of them like go on the market. And what happened with Greenwich and you know, Fortistar is they were both like purchased, or we're in a back and forth with the Public Service Commission on that, attempted to get purchased by cryptocurrency companies. You know, so that they want to plug their data centers for cryptocurrency mining directly into these power plants and just run them. They're luckily like,
as they are they trying to convert the centers at all? Or?
So Fortistar runs off natural gas. You know, it burns natural gas to create steam power. You know, like run turbines to like run steam power. Greenwich is a like massive coal-fired power plant, and they are transitioning it off of coal onto natural gas, which, you know, like, so Fortistar is also a peaker plant, you know, which it means that it's there to kick on as a backup for the grid. So like when everybody plugs their air conditioners in or their heaters in, you know, and we're all like, you know, home, like, you know, like needing that extra power, that's when Fortistar used to kick in, you know. Greenwich, you know, is more of a standard like power plant, you know, like similar to like energy, like Huntley, you know, in Tonawanda, just a massive like just burning coal to like build power. But it was switched off. It was closed, and you know, like it was no longer, you know, creating like emissions, no longer creating issues. And now like this cryptocurrency company in Seneca Lake wants to like, you know, get it running again, and they are running again to like produce cryptocurrency. So just adding those emissions and such. So I know that's a lot of information there,
I'm just like, so they're just trying to keep so I guess that's really interesting to me. I didn't realize crypto companies were like buying old, you know, power plants and then like, okay, well, we're just going to use them for, and they're not even, because they're really like publicly pitching like, we're just going to go buy nuclear plants.
There's a lot of greenwashing happening.
It's like, we're so green. They're buying coal plants to, like,
so I would say like, it changes every day, you know. So in New York, we had a 2-year moratorium specifically very narrowly on this particular issue. You know, that we were seeing like these power plants that were closed getting snapped up by cryptocurrency companies, and we managed to get a 2-year moratorium in place. And the DEC is supposed to be coming out with a study, of like what is the impact that these data centers, especially cryptocurrency mining, is having on our like emissions and on our energy use in the region. But it's all shifting so quickly. Speaking of nuclear, DigiHost, which is the company that's like trying to purchase Fortistar in North Tonawanda, they announced very recently, like literally within the last couple of days, that they're partnering with one of those small nuclear operations. That they want to like that's what they want to do at Fortistar. Is like one of those like small nuclear facilities, which. So I grew up near Oswego, right? Which is like one of the areas of the state where we have like large, nuclear power facilities. So I want to. I'm not completely anti-nuclear, but there's a heck of a difference between a state-run operation or like very heavy state oversight of an operation, that's specifically for the public good, and like a privately owned operation with something with these pollutants that like will exist for thousands and thousands of years, coming out of
who
this.
Has like I don't know if there's a precedent for this, but like who has oversight of that? If it's I've never heard of a privately owned power plant before.
It's it's one of those things I'm still learning about, but it's there are a lot more regulations, in the nuclear side of things. Like you get into like there's a lot more federal oversight.
Okay.
In theory, at least, like and that's where the scary part comes in.
Yeah, the government's tracking like who has nuclear stuff, what's going on. I mean, I could see that, but it still seems really kind of.
It's a lot.
It's dodgy. It's a little
scary.
dodgy to me.
It's scary. Yeah. Like there's a lot that we could parse out there. But so going back to like just the general energy use, we have like very limited like renewable like capacity, it's not very limited, but it's limited, right? It's like the sun is creates like a massive amount of power like that we can't possibly capture all at once, right? It's like it's limitless, but it's also like we are limited by like technology and feasibility, right? So every time even if it's grid powered, every time like you have one of these cryptocurrency mines like that's running, it's pulling power, from the grid that, like that renewable energy that could have been used for other purposes, So we know that we need these peaker plants sometimes, like which is indicative of like that we like even with like peak capacity, like we can't meet like the demand all the time, right? So we can't be adding like these extra energy demands, without like, figuring out like how to like, we just can't be adding those extra energy demands. Like unless we want to like give up, plugging in your coffee machine, or, like just having the lights on, it causes brownouts, when like you have all these like high energy demands that, that we can't necessarily like meet,
Right. And it's just, it sounds extra appalling to me personally. Like I've been to countries where there's like planned outages because they can't, like why aren't we focusing on trying to make sure people have like everyone has running water and electricity, all these other things. Like it's just another example to me of like wealth hoarding. Like like we have so much excess in this country, and now we're even trying to like have excess energy and power too for another form of currency that won't be accessible to global poverty or all these other things. So it's really kind of backwards.
And brownouts are much more dangerous than we think of them. It's like imagine you have like a respiratory condition and you rely on oxygen, like if there's a brownout and you don't have your backup power, you are in serious trouble. Like so like every time we see like a blackout or a brownout, we have to be like really aware that it's like there are people in trouble like when that happens.
And I don't think everybody thinks about those, especially like when throughout the country there was those heat waves and there were outages, and they were talking about not just heat stroke was happening, but the people that were on respirators or needed oxygen or whatever, their machines or different things like that. That's huge. So I've learned a lot already, but I don't know if there's any other kind of like policy measures or other local things you're working on or next steps that people can take to like take action on this.
There's a lot of things. I would encourage, contact your municipal governments to ask them for like a 2-year moratorium, because if you have like a former industrial operation, there's a good chance like there is a cryptocurrency company or an AI company that's eyeing that to like run a data center there. And, like what happened in Niagara Falls, like they just popped up. Like they just started like like it didn't go through like any city oversight or anything. They just like started running them, and then all these issues of noise pollution, all these issues of energy use, all of it suddenly started becoming apparent. And that's when like the city of Niagara Falls had to like backtrack and be like, wait, we need to like put something in place here. Happened in North Tonawanda as well. North Tonawanda right now has a really good model for a moratorium if folks want to like look at that particular legislation. And once you get that moratorium in place, push for zoning, protections. So this is Niagara Falls in particular, like has like the zoning in place. It's called a high energy use overlay is how they framed it, and it's basically requiring that whatever data center operation has like some way of like taking care of, make sure the power demand isn't like creating issues for the community. Also like noise pollution protections, like and all these other like related issues. Like there's a lot of water use, like with these power plants, that and that can create issues, so that like creating these zoning protections locally, like creates at least like some regulation of it. Ultimately, like we're going to need like state and national like regulation, like, because what happens is like I said, they just pop up, and just as quickly as they can pop up, they can also just pack up and move elsewhere, right? So like when you get regulation in one place, like it's kind of whack-a-mole, like because like then they'll just like take everything in the shipping container and just ship it elsewhere. So I would urge, like there is a current bill that the New York State AFL-CIO is pushing for, which is called the Loading Act. It's S7543 or A9430, which I think it's going to Governor Hochul's desk, and we need to sign it, and it would be creating like some workplace or workforce like protections for artificial intelligence in particular. So like artificial intelligence, we didn't get to it, but it's like there's some very positive like research based like uses of it. There's also some like garbage uses of it, like generating nightmarish pictures with like extra fingers and like extra limbs and things like that. It's not a valid it like we need to be, and it's also like scraping like artists' work to like make that work. So this bill would like create some protections at least at the New York State level for like for workers, like that we aren't getting our jobs like eliminated for chatbots to replace us, right? But we've also figured out that the New York State DEC is really behind on air permits, like in the renewals. You might have seen this in the Buffalo News a little bit. We came across this issue actually looking into the Fortistar permit, which has been expired for like 3-4 years now, and we came across like, oh wait a minute, that's not just Fortistar. There's a whole bunch of them. Like it's something like 90% in Erie and Niagara County of these Title V air permits are expired, and smaller facilities don't even necessarily have expiration dates. So it's really like reliant on like reporting, to like figure out if there's a problem. So we're working to push like for some changes at the state level to what's called the State Administrative Procedures Act, which would like require like a 5-year deadline for renewals. Like right now it's indefinite, as well as add expiration dates to some of these permits for like some of these facilities that are causing harm in our communities, but don't have that same oversight.
No, it's great to hear that there is stuff happening around this on the state level already. I've definitely seen it as a part of the national conversation, and I wasn't necessarily sure of either local legislation, even you bringing up North Tonawanda having a kind of model moratorium best practice. That's really interesting to me, and I'm happy to hear that, because North Tonawanda hasn't always been like the model authority on an environmental issue. So that's really great to hear, and I'm sure that's partly due to the organizing of Clean Air and other local environmental justice groups. People will be surprised how many, I still learn every day about how many people are working on environmental and ecological justice in Western New York. It's really inspiring.
And I would also add like, so the stamp facility in Genesee County, like they've had so much trouble finding tenants that, to produce like, like products for the new microchip like semiconductor industry, that they're now looking to data centers. There's a lot of pushback coming from the Seneca Nation, Tuscarora Nation, specifically about like data centers, at that facility, because it's like they don't want them either,
Yeah.
So we got to make sure, so that's another like avenue for intervention, is people can like, and honestly, like just contact your legislators and tell them like that you don't want to see data centers like in your backyard, if they're especially like ones that are being used for cryptocurrency mining. There's a lot of pressure right now coming, especially with the incoming administration in DC, to build, like, to really push for data center operations and cryptocurrency. And we gotta like put some protections in locally, to intervene.
Yep, protect our communities. Well, I thank you so much, Bridge, for coming and talking about this topic. I didn't know if there's anything else that you wanted to uplift.
Just real quick. Clean Air relies on member and supporter donations. We are currently in our end of year appeal. We'll be wrapping that up in mid-January. So I would, in order for us to be like vocal and like strong advocates, we can't rely on grant funding. We need to rely on, those funds that allow us like that flexibility.
No strings attached.
No strings attached. So I would strongly encourage you, become a member, visit our website, cacwmy.org. That's, or if you just Google Clean Air Coalition Western New York, will pop right up. That's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bridge, for coming on and talking.
Yeah, thank you.
If you have any more questions, please feel free. Clean Air Coalition has a very wide social media presence as well. Send them questions, DM, comment, like, subscribe, also to this channel as well. And I just thank you so much for being here today. And this is Deja James with Partnership for the Public Good. This has been The Public Good, coming to you every Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. We will see you in the new year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.